Velázquez. I'm an independent journalist from Berlin, and since I do not speak English every day, I will read my statement. In 2020, I became aware of broad-scale censorship in Germany when the accounts of renowned medical doctors and professors were banned from social media. It was a life-changing experience for me because it starkly contrasted with the image I had from my country as a non-perfect, but basically functioning democracy where every controversial opinion could be expressed as long as it was not constituting a crime under German law. I thought censorship was an ugly thing from the past, and in a real democracy, a bad argument would not have to be feared by anyone because it would be outsmarted by a better argument. 2020, many people, myself included, woke up to a totally different reality. In July of 2020, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the general director of the WHO, announced there will be no going back to the old normal. Tedros was right. In Germany, there was no going back to the old normal, and what the new normal meant was soon to becoming clear for everyone who dared to speak out against the COVID measures, broad-scale censorship, deplatforming, demonstration bans, police violence, home searches, debunking criminal trials for opinions, or simply making fun of politicians, defaming newspaper reports, framing, shaming, and blaming. The enemy may have changed over the years, but the pattern remains always the same, from COVID and COVID deniers to the Ukraine war and Putin apologists, the Gaza genocide and Hamas supporters, accompanied by the all-time classic of right-wing extremists, a category encompassing more and more regular citizens. 2020 censorship is an integral part of daily public life in Germany, and it has expanded and refined over the years. Features of the German censorship regime are international and platform-based, others are specific for the German context. At the level, Germany is closely collaborating with censorship regimes of the WHO and United Nations like the UN Infodemic Campaign. Germany and all social media platforms operating on European soil fall under the DSA, the Digital Services Act of the EU, and social media platforms work hand in hand with German authorities like the Cyber AZ to report online content directly to enforcement agencies. After COVID was over and Twitter was taken over by Musk, censorship has not disappeared, but platforms have moved from outright account banning to more subtle and invisible forms of censorship like AI-powered shadow banning, warning labels leading towards Wikipedia articles or government websites. Other features of the German censorship regime are rather unique and only comparable to the US or UK. One of them is lawfare. Government critics are bombarded with criminal proceedings. Most of those critics have never got in contact with law enforcement before COVID. Medical doctors, scientists, and judges had to endure home searches and went through criminal trials, resulting in years of conviction, loss of jobs, status, and pensions. In 2021, a new law was introduced, the Anti-Right-Wing Extremism and Hate Crime Act, reintroducing the offense insults against persons of public life. As a consequence, tens of thousands of criminal complaints were issued by German politicians and media celebrities against ordinary citizens. The best-known case is the Schwachkopf affair, where a German pensioner and his family received a home search for posting a satirical meme about former German Minister of Economy Robert Habeck. The German EU politician Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann issues 200 to 250 criminal complaints per month. There are agencies specialized on these complaints. It has turned into a veritable sidekick business model for politicians and other public media figures. Since then, home searches have become a part of daily life for ordinary citizens in Germany. The cases are reported to enforcement agencies by a dense network of federal systems combined with NGOs. In 2025, trusted flaggers have been denominated by the German state in order to flag social media posts as hate speech or online violence and report them. Prominent recent case is the renowned German professor Norbert Bolz, who was reported by a federal unit and had a police visit at his doorstep for a satirical posting on X. After a 60 Minutes report about Germany's Hate Action Day under former Interior Minister Nancy Faeser, 3 German state prosecutors were asked about how people react when the police takes their phones from them. They answered they're shocked and laughed, boasting that taking people's electronic devices would be even harder than the actual punishment because people would depend on their phones, thereby admitting that home searches served as a punishment before an actual conviction had taken place. After critical media in Germany are under pressure since 2020, many got debanked once or several times. I myself got debanked 2 weeks ago without explanation. Former Interior Minister Nancy Faeser even tried to outright ban a medium, the right-wing medium Compact, issuing a home search of epic proportions, capturing obviously right-wing desks and chairs for months. After media often serves to frame and defame dissidents, journalists working in those outlets also complain about internal censorship. Texts are edited, reports deleted, interviews forbidden. The first and only German television report about DNA contaminations in COVID-19 vaccines was taken offline just after a few days because of an alleged lack of information about the measurement method. By these standards, a lot of government vaccine campaigns on public television would have to be taken offline as well. After critical artists are under pressure, contracts are cancelled, public venues are morally pressured by local NGOs if they dare to rent their space to conspiracy theorists. Most venues bow down and cancel events, often last minute and without explanation. COVID-related Telegram groups were censored in app stores after German Interior Minister Nancy Faeser met with Telegram officials in winter of 2022. Also, Germany's Interior Secret Service, Verfassungsschutz, protection of the Constitution, plays a crucial role in the German censorship regime. 2 legal changes in 2021 allowed the agency not only to observe dissident groups, but also individuals who have committed no crime. Besides a change in the law, a new category of observation was created, Verfassungsschutzrelevante Delegitimierung des Staates, which is an unpronounceable term even by German standards. It means protection of the constitution-relevant delegitimization of the state. The new category provides a convenient one-fits-all umbrella term for all dissidents not fitting into left or right-wing or religious extremism schemes. Although German Interior Secret Service is not a censorship entity per se, it frames individuals and groups in its yearly reports and encourages society to isolate them. I, myself, am observed by the German Interior Secret Service for my journalistic work. Despite all the censorship that I just described, we had the rare opportunity in Germany for a glimpse behind the curtain of the COVID measures in form of the so-called RKI Files, which were leaked from Germany's foremost health authority, the RKI, the Robert Koch Institute. The German independent medium Multipolar fought for years to obtain the internal minutes of the panel, and it received a highly redacted version of the files and published it in March of 2024. Even in the highly redacted version, it became apparent that internal debates in the RKI differed very much from its public statements. Also in March of last year, an RKI employee got in contact with me. The person was guided by high moral standards and felt that the public deserved all the files because the RKI is a tax-funded state agency. Over a period of 4 months, the whistleblower shared with me all internal minutes of the COVID crisis panel from January 2020 to July 2023, completely unredacted, plus 10 gigabytes of additional material. I published the data in July of 2024 and held a press conference about it with 2 colleagues. German media reported about it over months, but not because they wanted, but because they had to. The central takeaway was undeniable and rehabilitated all the critics. COVID measures in Germany were actually not based on science, but on political will, a fact that was also confirmed by former RKI President Lothar Wieler last week in front of a German state parliament. The RKI gave recommendations, but politicians decided about which measures to take. After a few examples, people were censored if they warned that masks could have negative side effects. Meanwhile, the RKI in November of 2020. After mention still be made, it is disadvantageous and dangerous when masks are used by lay people. Influence is no longer possible. The consultations are taking place simultaneously and the RKI was not asked in advance. In Germany, demonstrations were forbidden proactively because it was suspected that people would not adhere to mask obligations. The RKI in May of 2020, there is no evidence for wearing masks outdoors. After people who criticized the testing regime were also censored, the RKI noted in April of 2020, the question arises in general whether the number of cases is currently increasing due to increased testing. An increase in testing can create an artificial increase without changing the epidemiological situation. And in May of 2020, test is essentially an implicit strategy addition that was proposed by the government. Overall, it's delicate because the politics have made specifications with which we don't fully agree. These must be integrated into the strategy as far as possible. After criticized measures for children like school closures, masks, testing at school, or child vaccination were censored and defamed, but the RKI already knew in February of 2020 that children were not prevalent in transmission chains and children were less at harm than with influenza. After the RKI was against broad-scale school closures, but the schools were closed several days after, state after state. In May of 2021, the RKI noted that Health Minister Jens Spahn planned a vaccination schedule for children, although it was not recommended by Germany's vaccination authority, the STIKO. In April of 2022, we learned from the files that the testing regime at schools was introduced at the explicit request of Federal Chancellor Angela Merkel and not the RKI's focus. After King Point, pandemic of the unvaccinated swapped over from the United States and was enthusiastically embraced by German media and politicians, like former Health Minister Jens Spahn. In November of 2021, the RKI notes, the media is speaking of a pandemic of the unvaccinated. From a professional standpoint, this is not correct. The entire population contributes. Should this be addressed in the communication? The minister says that at every press conference, probably on purpose, and it can't really be corrected. After RKI already knew in May of 2021 about myocarditis cases in young men, but medical doctors who spoke out about it were publicly ridiculed as vaccine deniers. To conclude my argument, the disinformation of yesterday is the truth of today. The free expression of opinions and ideas is the basis for scientific and societal progress. In fact, the dialectic of thesis and antithesis is the only way science and society have ever moved forward. While the objectives in order to justify censorship may be noble, the consequences can be fatal. A recent example is the censorship of a study about possible harms of the COVID-19 vaccine during pregnancy on LinkedIn. Censoring essential health information warning about possible side effects of medication harms people and costs lives. Censorship is not compatible with science, the free and open society, and democracy. If this is the new normal, we should get back to the old one. Thank you.